for genetic study. We know that bovine cellular structure is so similar to man's that it can be tested and get positive results for humans. What would this be all about? Why would an extraterrestrial race, a race that was from many light years away, be abducting all of these people and all of the cattle, not to mention a few goats and whatnot? Now, is it possible that this would be the case for a race that was coming to visit planet Earth, or would this be a case of a race that maybe existed on planet Earth? Could it be that some of the aliens that we think are actually extraterrestrial are subterrestrial? Perhaps even submariner. Certainly most of the first UFO encounters were by the Navy of UFO craft coming up out of the ocean, or what they called USOs. We have lots of tales of aliens in connection with water, and even the Amazon is one of the main hotspots for extraterrestrial or UFO activity. But are they extraterrestrial? That's the question. When we start looking around and we find the Nazis are building UFOs as well, then we have the man-made hypothesis. We have a lot to sort out when it comes to these stories. And when what we get for our disclosure are these pilots, these officials telling us their tales of craft that have come and gone, with no real tales of the inhabitants of these crafts, no real stories, although they do come. They do talk of captured EBEs and their inevitable death in our cages. We do talk of connections with Eisenhower and his mysterious toothache when he was flown perhaps to another military base to meet with the extraterrestrials, to make a contract with them about the abductions of human race. And when we look to the Greys, we definitely see what appears to be more of a demonic type scenario. And this would bring us back to the fourth kind. This idea of possession by aliens. I cannot believe that if aliens were here and were visiting from some distant star, that they would need to abduct as many people and cows as has been going on for the last 50 years. And yet I believe that this is going on because the abundance of evidence to suggest so. Now, most of these men have been held at a 50-year contract before they could release their data. Some data will never be released. But it's time now for them to start to release that data. And so in this bent, the UN has announced an ambassador for ETs. And yet you find that they're already backtracking on this. This is when Othman was given this job, a 58-year-old Malaysian astrophysicist, Mazlan Othman, head of the UN's Office for Outer Space Affairs, which is charged with promoting international cooperation in the peaceful uses of outer space. Now, as they announced that Miss Othman was going to become this ET ambassador, she quickly backtracked and started to say, no, thank you for the honor, but I need to turn this down. Now, she led Malaysia's National Space Agency before heading to the UN and helped train the country's first astronaut. And she's scheduled next week to be speaking at the Royal Society event, where in this she announced that she would not be the one to greet E.T. when he arrived, but yet would be there to discuss near-Earth objects. So now we're back to our SS officer, Werner von Braun. So here she is going to meet with the Royal Society on the idea that she's coming to deal with near-Earth objects, and yet the very meeting that she's going to is dealing with extraterrestrial contact. Looking for the full disclosure on this. sometimes all of my posts. And if you want to follow along and keep up with these news stories, go over to FreemanTV.com and check out the Space War News. You'll find it up in the top right-hand corner. Or over at the FreemanPerspective.blogspot.com, where you'll find it just on the right-hand side. So I was looking for a bit more into her. Okay, so the Australian had learned that the recent quote from Othman says, "The continued search for extraterrestrial communication sustains the hope that someday humankind will receive signals from extraterrestrials. When we do, we should have in place a coordinated response that takes into account all the sensitivities related to the subject. The UN is a ready-made mechanism for such coordination." Imagine that. So they attempted to get Othman to join and become this alien ambassador, but she passed up on it, and instead is going to show up for the meeting, which has to do with everything to do with contact with extraterrestrials. But she says, no, I'm there to talk about near-Earth objects. So we're watching this unfold, and is it too obvious? Is this too simple? Where we watch it unfold, where we see it go from the Red Scare to terrorists to asteroids to aliens. Now, Apophis is back in the news. Discovery Channel is working on making an Apophis documentary about the discovery of Apophis. And at the same time, they have the ET disclosure going on. We find that it seems to be just too simple of a script. For me, it's just too simple. But yet, how can we deny what is going on when we start to see all of the news coming out? We have this recent UN with the nukes and UFOs. We have the Funes coming and talking about baptizing ETs. And then NASA getting on board with their Rothschild